Hello, and welcome to Sideways. This week, the one where we talk about Chandler Bing.
Okay, so what have you got this week then?
What I want to talk to you about is... actually, I want to ask you a question first before we get into this.
Yeah.
I want to ask you why you tend to avoid things that are popular.
What, me personally?
You personally. I know it's something that's cropped up over the years. I remember from a long time ago when people like Oasis would come along and hit big, and you purposely not like them regardless of what.
No, I didn't like Oasis because I didn't like their music.
Well, you say that. But and you don't like you didn't like Breaking. You wouldn't watch Breaking Bad, for example, because it was too popular.
Yeah, or read the Da Vinci Code.
Now, there is a certain personality trait that fits. Like, I can't remember what it's called, but
sensible, is it?
No, it's not sensible.
No.
It's a little bit bizarre. But I also remember you, and you might have to straighten me out on this one, but I'm pretty sure that. You know the cast of Friends.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you got three guys and the three girls,
yeah.
And I remember they was doing this survey on the street, and they were asking who's their favourite character was, etc.
Yeah.
And they're asking the guys that said which girl do you like best out of that, and Jennifer Aniston tended to come up tops out of that. And I remember that you always said that you used to like Lisa Kudrow. You like Phoebe. She was your favourite girl, and I thought. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, is it something you purposely do?
No, I don't think so. I suppose it depends what you mean by purposely. I do. You're right. I do tend to have a dislike or a lack of fondness, which is not quite strong, for things that have become mainstream and very popular. Okay. That's true. I don't like seeing bands in arenas. It's probably selfishness. I like knowing about things that other people don't know about. When everybody else knows about them, I'm not so interested in them anymore.
I know.
Probably does say something about me. I probably should see a therapist.
I think so as you can look in the mirror. But I think certainly at school, I would tend to do that at school. Certainly.
You're saying I'm childish.
No, I'm not saying childish, but I'm sort of admitting I had a bit of a problem, but I've grown out of it.
So you are saying I'm childish?
I've grown up. I felt that I wouldn't like to go and watch bands that other people were watching, really. I like to discover bands and be the first person to see it.
See, I'm still like that now.
Yeah, I think there's still a little bit of that in us. But looking at going back to the Friends situation, I was always quite fascinated with Chandler Bing.
Okay, right.
I always found him. I thought he's quite funny. Obviously, it was scripted, but I thought some of it.
This is aspirational then for you, isn't it?
Really,
it was quite funny.
Really, I felt that he was given some very good lines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
I agree.
I think he was. I found him quite fascinating. I think it was quite funny. And as it turned out later on down the line, obviously the guy that played Chandler, Matthew Perry. Later, after quite late on into the Friends, I think it was about series 8 or 9 where he came out and said that he'd had an alcohol problem and an addiction problem.
The actor, you mean, not the character?
Yeah, the actor, yeah, Matthew himself.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, it's apparently he had a jet ski accident, and this was well before he was signed up to go into the Friends franchise. He had a jet ski accident, and he ended up being prescribed a lot of painkillers, and they're opiate-based ones.
Right.
And he said he found once the prescription finished, he still craved them, and he got hold of them and continued taking those, and that drifted also along into alcohol, which he could get more freely because it. He felt that even though things were starting to go very well for him, he was feeling he found himself in a position where, with the alcohol and the painkillers, he could be a little bit different. His confidence was boosted, etc. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people at the start of their addiction process find exactly that. It's quite good fun at first. It changes your perception of things. It changes your persona, and you can be a little bit. You can be different from yourself. And I think that he found it quite liberating at first. And as we subsequently know, it turned into a bit of a problem for him.
So what is that? How would you? So tell me a little bit about that sort of early allure of drinking then.
Well, for me, it was. I certainly found it a bit of a social crutch. I found that it was a. I mean, in retrospect, I was wrong, but at the time, it felt like it was giving me a boost, and I could be a little bit more lively. I could be around people. My shyness, which has always been a problem in my childhood, really, was washed away. It helped me to be more outgoing, and I think a lot of addicts find that at the start that it is you're using drink rather than it being something which is a nice social thing to do. And so when you look back on it, is when I really started to use drink for a purpose other than just being out with friends.
Right. Yeah, it's funny that, because I would never have seen you as someone who was shy. Do you find that surprising?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have said that to me, but I certainly did. I found that I felt awkward.
Yeah.
I certainly felt, sort of my school years were never that happy, really. I always felt a little bit nervous. I never felt that I was really good enough, and it was a strange feeling that it was at my worst, I suppose, coming up to do my A levels. Right. And it was at that point I discovered that having a drink was something that made me feel better about myself.
Before your A levels.
It was before my A levels, or during my A levels, the 2 years I was doing my A levels. I felt that I found that having a drink from time to time would make me a more sociable person. And I found that as soon as I started to find drink, and I wanted to go to more parties, etc. And I found that the more parties I went to, I'd even at that stage started to preload a little before I went along.
Which, of course, is very popular these days.
It is very popular. And
prinks, I think they call it.
Prinks,
the youngsters.
The youngsters of today, they probably do. I mean, it was something that I was aware I was doing, but I didn't see it as a problem at all.
Yeah.
And I think when you listen to some of the stuff about Matthew Perry on YouTube or whatever, you find that he was doing pretty much exactly the same thing. He found it gave him a little bit more confidence. He said there was about 3 episodes in which he doesn't really remember a great deal.
Right.
It was a fuzzy period for him.
A bit like your lost decade.
Well, exactly what I've got written down here in my notes. It reminded me exactly about my lost decade, where you're sort of there. But you're not really enjoying it, but you're not really engaging properly, and looking back on it, there's so many patches, or so many holes in that time. I really can't remember what was going on.
Well, yeah, I mean that's very clear, because there are often times when I remind you of something, you say I don't remember that at all, and I find that more than perplexing. And then of course we realise that it was in the 10 years or so that you were befuddled.
It was fuzzy. It was fuzzy. It's strange because, I lost that the years that I lost, I sort of found I've re-engaged with my taste in music when I got into sobriety, and then went back over the last 10 years and picked up where I left off to a large extent.
How do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, I picked up the bands that I liked before I started to drink heavily and lost touch with.
Right.
I then went and I scouted around the charity shops and found their albums that people had bought and listened to and got fed up with. Yeah. But it was new to me. It was quite fantastic. And again, I started to discover bands that had been around for some time that I hadn't really heard of.
But I suppose that on the other side of that, there's a cost to that kind of loss of 10 years, isn't there? There's things that you can't relive in that time. Because things have moved on, haven't they? I mean, relationships, for example, they move on, don't they? And it's difficult to fill some gaps in. Whereas you can go back and you can listen to something that is the same today as it would have been 10 years ago. In other aspects of life, it's not quite so easy to do that.
No, it isn't. And I think the biggest problem for me emotionally was missing those years of my children growing up.
Yeah.
Because I still find out bits and pieces now of what they did during that period that I had no recollection of, or wasn't aware of at all at the time anyway. So that has been, I think it's taking a long time, but it's taken a long time to get back on track. But finding out those bits and pieces is part of the recovery process, and I think it's been, which is why it's a continuing journey, because I'm still finding out stuff that have been lost to my outside of my memory and have been lost to the passage of time, but they're starting to come back.
Yeah, just going back to Chandler Bing.
Yeah,
acting as a profession. He's playing a role, isn't he?
Yeah.
And in a way, drinking enables you to play a role. It enables you to don a mask to be someone other than who you are. So I suppose in that way, it's not particularly surprising that a lot of actors do struggle with self-image. So in that respect, it's probably not surprising.
I think if you look at people in the entertainment industry as a whole, they often do drift into drink and drug problems. And I think you find comedians are amongst the worst, where they have this persona, but they have to try and be happy all the time, and it must be a real struggle. And so I can understand why it happens. So they lean on these substances to give them a bit of a boost. But unfortunately, you can't. It's not a real boost. It's something which will catch up with you.
Yeah, I mean, we should all feel the freedom to be miserable once in a while.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. It's well, I think you've taught me that it's okay to not be okay, and I think it's something which takes a little while to get used to and to come to terms with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing for a lot of people is accepting themselves as not okay.
Yes,
because it's very difficult to change when you are telling yourself that you're not allowed to be the way that you are.
Yeah,
you have to kind of accept yourself the way you are before you can change. For some reason, that commenting about comedians and entertainers, needing to be happy all the time, has reminded me of something I read in the paper yesterday about Rod Hull and Emu.
Okay.
Because Emu, I think, is going to auction.
Oh, yeah. Do you know, I think I saw that. Isn't Orville the duck going as well?
Yeah, correct. And I remember someone saying, I may have read it on Twitter, someone saying that he lived near Rod Hull when he was at school, and he used to see him from time to time, and he was a miserable bastard.
I think
so. There we are.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, isn't it? They've got to have some downtime.
Yeah,
from trying to be amusing and funny all the time.
No pun intended, considering he died by falling off a roof.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it was during a.
So he had some downtime there.
He did. Wasn't it during a Man United match where he wanted?
I don't know. He was adjusting the aerial, wasn't he? So he could get a better picture.
He was, because I think it was sort of half time. He went up on the roof to adjust the aerial. We've
all done that.
We've all done that. And never and didn't see the match out. He didn't know what the result was in the end. I think it was a draw, by the way, Rod, if you're listening. But also going back to Chandler Bing, he had 3 trips to rehab. Okay, three trips, and it was on the 3rd trip that he started to see a change in himself, and he found the change starting when he started to help others. And he built up a bit of a catalogue or back catalogue of expertise on addiction and addiction problems. And I found exactly the same, that my recovery certainly started to kick off and flourish once I started to feel confident about my recovery, and therefore had the ability to pass on some of that knowledge on to people coming in just behind me. Go on.
No, go on.
I think that I see it happen all the time now, and we tend to find that people that come into groups and then go on to do a bit of co-facilitating and facilitating, etc. Once you get to that position, there's an extra impetus to your recovery. Not only do you feel that you've started to slot back into society, you've got a little bit of responsibility, and you start to get a bit of self-esteem back.
Don't you think that absolutely makes sense, but don't you think that is because addiction is essentially a very selfish condition?
Yeah, very much so.
And so when you've reached the point in your recovery where you've started to look away from yourself at other people and recognising that you have on the one hand, something to offer other people, which of course you're probably not feeling very much in addiction, and recognising that there is great joy to be had in being able to help other people, then those sorts of things, it becomes almost kind of self-perpetuating. That in itself will start to strengthen your recovery, because surely you're starting to feel as if you're playing a meaningful role in society.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that it's I don't know if it's it's not as that you feel as something as strong as a calling at that point, but you certainly find that that by giving back at that time, it's almost a duty to start to hand on the baton of recovery to the people that are following you.
The baton of recovery.
Yeah.
Nice.
It is. Yes, it's. I've just made that up myself, but it is.
No kidding.
No kidding. I think it is quite an important aspect, because there's no doubt about it that it takes an addict to understand an addict,
right?
And passing that baton on, and the person that's receiving the baton gets a great deal from that, and the person giving it gets a great deal of pleasure from it as well. It's a win-win. Mm-hmm. And I found as soon as my confidence started to soar, once I got into I think I started my running a group after about 5 months into recovery. We normally recommend about 6 months now, because you don't want people to go in too early, because we have had a situation on more than one occasion where people have been desperate to get in and get involved in facilitating and co-facilitating, and suddenly find that there's a bit of an extra pressure that they didn't anticipate.
And they start putting their own recovery
and they put their own recovery at risk, which is counterproductive. So we have to be really careful, which is why sometimes we'll be running several meetings a week, and sometimes it'll go back down to to a couple, because you've got to have the right people and doing the right facilitating and volunteering at the right time. But I thought with Matthew Perry, he'd once he'd come out of rehab, he opened up his own house and let people come to stay with him that had addiction problems, and he then set up a rehab unit, and he's going from strength to strength.
Have you thought of opening up your house?
No, not really. No, I don't think it's big enough to allow too many people in, to be honest. But obviously he had the financial means to be able to back his projects up. But he said that suddenly life has meaning now, which it really hadn't before. All that time that he was out partying, he had adulation, he had a string of girlfriends, he was rich. Everything looked from the outside, everything was in place. But he said that it was probably his loneliest time, because he just felt that he was hiding this problem away from her, and he found it very cathartic when he was able to talk to the other members of the Friends cast, and they were very supportive, and obviously the producers were keen to get him into rehab, so they suspended filming for a while and that sort of thing, and so he had a lot of support around him, and I think that's quite critical as well. Doing it on your own, we know it really doesn't work. It's really, really tough, but having the right people around you at the right time is vital. And
having friends, one could say.
I like it. I'll tell you.
You see what I've done there?
I can see what you've done there. It's almost funny. But I feel. I don't know if you've ever looked up on YouTube some of the things about Friends, etc. But there's a couple of interesting interviews with Matthew Perry, just regarding his
You're
his
a bit
addiction.
of a super fan, aren't you?
I sort of. I am in it in many ways. I get this kindred spirit. I know you laugh about me sort of likening myself to Tony Adams and Matthew Perry, but
who's it going to be next?
Wait and see. Wait and see. We're bound by addiction. It's a really strong bond. I know that if I did meet these people, that bond would be there. I know when people come into groups from all walks of life. And certainly when I was away in detox, etc., you meet people from all walks of life, and you're instantly on the same level.
Yes.
You're instantly bound by this curious, nasty condition, and you're both fighting exactly the same demons in exactly the same way. And so you get this, you get a friendship with these people, which tends to last a long time. And I think that it must be really tricky for someone like him living out their addiction in the public gaze.
Yeah,
it concerned me, and I've watched quite a lot of bits and pieces about Paul Gascoigne, who also has had to live out his problems and his struggles with his demons and struggles with his addiction problems with the paparazzi after him the whole time.
Yeah.
Now, I'd have hated that, and it would be a real extra layer of pressure upon you to try and work your problems out in that way.
Mm. I thought you were going to liken yourself to Paul Gascoigne.
I wasn't. No. He's next on the list. If you're listening, Paul, we'll have a chat, mate. But I think there was also one of the interviewers with Matthew Perry at one time said to him, "That was really brave of you to sort of come out, as it were, at that time as an alcoholic." And he said, "No, it wasn't brave at all. It wasn't. It's never brave for an addict to come out, because you only come out at that point when it's life or death.
Yeah.
There's nothing brave about that. You get to a decision where you are absolute rock bottom, that if you don't do something, you are going to die.
Yeah.
So it's not bravery. It's really a force of nature at that point.
Mm.
You haven't got any choice.
You haven't got any further to fall.
You haven't got any further to fall, and you haven't got any other choice. If you don't want to die, you've got to ask for help.
Yeah.
So bravery doesn't enter into it. And people have said to me about that, because I know when I first went into recovery, when I went away into the residential detox, I told everyone before I went in what I was doing and what was happening. And when I come out, I talked about it constantly. And we have other people that come into groups who don't tell anyone. Yeah, but they keep it very much a secret.
But in a sense, they're, that says something about the attitude they have towards their recovery, doesn't it? Because if you tell everybody, I've heard people say before, giving something up, going into rehab, giving up smoking even, they don't tell anyone because they don't want to look foolish if it doesn't work. And, so in that sense, they're abdicating their responsibility for what they're doing. So to tell someone, this is what I'm doing, I'm going into rehab, I'm getting clean, it's not just other people that hear that, it's you that hears that. You're hearing your own voice saying, this is a change that I am making. And that's so powerful, and you can't, nothing can replace that. You have to be very, it all starts and ends with yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Nobody stops drinking until they decide to.
No, they don't. And we've had people I've known a lot of people that have done exactly the same as I have and been very open and told everyone. And we've had other people that have kept it very close to their chest. And you tend to find, I've known people who have been successful using either of those methods. But you tend to find, if you're open with everyone and tell everyone what's going on, people are much more supportive. They can't support you if they don't know what's going on in your life. So you get the support you need, and it's really cathartic.
So that's Chandler Bing then.
Chandler Bing done.
So cup of tea? Maybe we could watch an episode of Friends.
We'll do that, shall we? Yeah.
Shall we? Okay.
Yeah, not the one with the naked man.
No, all right.
Okay.
See you next week.
See ya.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can email us to let us know what you think of the show. And finally, we'd like to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.